On behalf of the Consulate General of India in Hong Kong and Macau SARs, I am delighted to welcome you all today for a truly fascinating exploration of cultural patterns. Today's event, titled Lord Hanuman and Sun Wukong, a comparative analysis from Indo-Chinese cultural traditions, is organized by the Consulate in support with ISKCON Hong Kong. By examining the two iconic figures, we aim to celebrate the deep-rooted cultural and spiritual connections that have bridged India and China for centuries. To commence the program, I would like to invite the Honorable Consul General of India, Shri Rajesh Nayak, onto the stage to deliver the opening remarks. Sir.
Very distinguished Dr. Kenneth Valpey, a senior devotee of his ISKCON movement and a research fellow at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. And I collect from his biography that from 2014 onwards, he is better known as Krishna-ksetra Swami. Yes, he has renounced the worldliness and adopted sannyasi. And all the devotees from ISKCON, distinguished audience, and ladies and gentlemen. I talk softly, somehow I'm more comfortable with me talking softly. Sun Wukong, I gather from Wikipedia that it is a literary and religious figure best known as one of the main characters in the 16th century Chinese novel Journey to the West. It was published during the Ming Dynasty and is widely attributed to Wu Chengye. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. Beyond this, I really don't know anything about Sun Wukong. I'm actually eagerly looking forward to listen to Dr. Kenneth Valpey to understand, as Survi just mentioned, how deeply Indian and the Chinese culture, Indian and the Chinese civilizations are connected with each other. When we received the proposal from our consulate's dear friend Maji, we thought over it. Why should we give a podium for? Why should we give an opportunity for talk like this? We thought over it, and I felt it's important that we listen to such talks, such ideas, such views for three important reasons. Number one, we need to understand that despite different paths that different religions, different culture, different civilizations advocate, but the core value of every religion, every belief system remains the same. It's about love, it's about compassion, it's about kindness, it's about making things better for the entire humanity. It's not about one-upmanship, it's not about competition between the cultures, it's not about I'm better than the other. Certainly not. It's about appreciating each other, genuinely valuing and learning from each other, and understanding the perspectives that our predecessors shared. And when you look at, I was just going through it, and you understand, you appreciate how wise our ancestors were. They were the one who decided to travel east or west, north or south. They were the one who decided to learn from each other, and never felt that it is something belongs to the other, it belongs to us. And they brought it back, then adopted in their own society so that the society they live will be better off. Unfortunately, today we live in a time we find fault, too much of fault with the other side. We don't trust the other side, we doubt them. And that is the reason we have conflicts, we have insecurity. Unfortunately, instead of a culture of peace, we unfortunately create a culture of violence. That's very, very sad. And it's our humble effort to bring some wise people to Consulate and to listen to them, and through them understand the kind of similarity as one human community we share with each other. We are interested in that, and much like you, I'm very eager to listen to Dr. Kenneth Valpey and understand how deeply Chinese and Indian civilizations learn from each other, how deeply they exchange ideas, and how wise they were compared to our present time. Dr. Kenneth Valpey, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and taking effort to come to the consulate and address us on a very, very interesting topic. I'm very eager to listen to you. Once again, thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you, Honorable Consul General. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Kenneth Valpey. As Honorable Consul General mentioned, Dr. Valpey is a senior devotee in ISKCON and a distinguished scholar who holds a PhD from the University of Oxford. He serves as a research fellow at the Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies and the Oxford Centre for Animal Ethics in the UK. A prolific author and educator, Dr. Valpey has taught at the University of Florida and Bhaktivedanta College in Belgium. He also shares a special connection with our host city, having taught courses on Indian religion and culture at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. We are honored to have him with us to delve into the fascinating narratives of Lord Hanuman and Sun Wukong. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kenneth Valpey with a warm round of applause.
So, thank you so much, Honorable Consulate General Nair. I genuinely appreciate your comments, your reflections that you've made. I feel also these are values which we are pursuing. And I hope that this little presentation will serve that purpose which you have spoken of. I want to also thank Mr. and Mrs. Sharma for arranging, for bringing up this possibility to give this presentation. And I have to say also that my voice went out a few days ago, and it's just in the process of coming back. So I hope that it will endure for the time that I'm speaking. Otherwise, I will have to, speak by some mental telepathy, or we'll see what, what we can do. But with your encouragement, we'll try to say something on this subject of Lord Hanuman and Sun Wukong. Probably most of you are most familiar with Hanumanji, and perhaps less with Sun Wukong. And the same is true of myself. I have to admit, perhaps I know a little more than Wikipedia, but I like to say that this is a work in progress. I am learning, and also this is just a kind of cross-section of a huge topic of understanding interaction of the two traditions of India and China. Something which I became interested in when I first came in 2007 to Hong Kong to teach at Chinese University. It struck me that there's a history here which I am very unaware of, and having been visiting India since 1978, what are the connections? So I find this connection particularly intriguing. This is a general question. Perhaps I can borrow someone's watch because I want to make sure I don't go too long. If I could, yes. Oh yeah, that one. Oops.
2, 3, 1, 1.
Oh, okay. 2, 3, 1. Okay. So, how do stories highlight similarities or differences between Chinese and Indian cultures? Now, immediately there will be a concern by traditionalists. What do you mean stories? When we speak of the Ramayana, this is not just stories, this is history. Here, I'm not going into that issue. but I'm saying story in the sense of narrative. Narrative. His story is also narrative. And I want to suggest that this is a kind of question in the background. What do stories do in terms of connecting these two traditions? Of course, my focus will be on these two works, The Journey to the West, which, as we heard, is from the 16th century of the Common Era. And it's a novel. In the West, we don't generally think of novels as coming into view until the 18th or 19th century. And the other work, of course, is the Valmiki Ramayana, which is certainly much older than The Journey to the West. It is, well, from modern estimation of scholars, possibly from the 2nd century before the Common Era to the 2nd century after in the Common Era. The tradition will say it is much older, that it is from Treta Yuga, perhaps 1 million years ago. The evidence or the existence of written text of the Ramayana, the earliest written text that we have of a complete Ramayana, is from a manuscript which is in the Newari script. And that particular manuscript is kept in Kathmandu. And that is from, if I remember correctly, also from the 8th century of the Common Era. Before that, we don't have written text of the Ramayana. I was also taking inspiration on this subject from the fact that in China, mainland China, in the city of Hangzhou, has been recently produced a computer game called Black Myth. Well, it says here Sun Wukong. It's actually Black Myth Wukong. This has become extremely popular worldwide. And you see on the right, there's a museum exhibition in Hong Kong, in Hangzhou, extremely popular, showing all of the artwork from this particular game. And the game is focusing on this figure, Sun Wukong. So this is just to indicate the popularity of the Sun Wukong, the Chinese tradition. And of course, the Ramayana, most of you will know, continues to be ever so popular in so many forms, especially in India, but all over the world. In Southeast Asia, certainly, it's been said by one scholar that there are some 300 different versions of the Ramayana, 300 and counting, I would say, with popular media versions, in particular the film versions, which you may be more familiar with, some of you, than the written Valmiki Ramayana. This is a quote from the very popular historian William Dalrymple. He said, "In villages across South Asia, hundreds of people would gather around a single TV set to watch the gods and demons play out their destinies. In the noisiest and most bustling cities, trains, buses, and cars came to a sudden halt, and a strange hush fell over the bazaars. In Delhi, government meetings had to be rescheduled after the entire cabinet failed to turn up for an urgent briefing. This is referring to the showing, I believe it was 1987 or 89, for an entire year. It was shown. Basically, India shut down as the Ramayana was being performed, and there is a more recent edition. We can go back, of course, in history. This is a famous sculpture from the Ellore, the Kailas temple, which has been carved out of solid stone. This is from the 7th or 8th century. Kind of the narrative of the Ramayana in stone. And in case someone is not familiar with the story, I've given a very compact rundown. The divine hero, Prince Rama, we may want to say Lord Rama, soon after marrying Sita, is banished to the forest for 14 years. This is by the intrigue of his stepmother, Kaikeyi, to enable her son Bharata to rule the kingdom of Ayodhya. Rama and Sita, together with Rama's brother Lakshmana, have many adventures in the forest, and all described in the Ramayana. And at some point, Ravana, who is a Rakshasa, and a man-eating beast, or in English we might translate as a titan, king of Lanka, hears of Sita's beauty and decides he must have her. And so he schemes to abduct her. This has been portrayed in so many artworks. To recover Sita, Rama then makes alliance with the Vanara kingdom of Kishkinda. Now the word Vanara is typically translated as monkey, but it is an open question among scholars. It can also be taken to mean Vana Nara, or human beings residing in the forest. In any case, sometimes I'll say monkey and sometimes Vanara. So they meet Hanuman, of course, and he eventually is sent to find Sita, and eventually he meets her, and at that time he burns Lanka, and he returns to report to Rama. And famously, he simply says, when he arrives back, found. He doesn't want to waste words, so he just says, found. The Vanaras then build a bridge to Lanka. Rama and his Vanara hordes invade Lanka. There's a battle with Ravana. Ravana is finally killed by Rama by a single arrow to the heart. Rama returns, and we celebrate Diwali as the return of Rama. This is one of several significant elements of Diwali or Deepavali. He returns with Sita, with Lakshman, to not exactly live happily ever after, but that's a subject we won't go into here. I've mentioned, 5 themes in the Ramayana, which are particularly important. First is the keeping of vows. Both Rama and his father Dasharatha are famously keeping their vows. Rama insists on keeping his vow despite the desire of the entire population of Ayodhya. A second principle or theme is fraternal solidarity. His brother Bharata and his brother Lakshmana are completely in solidarity with Rama, and it's it's very touching how the exchanges are described between them. And then, of course, the wife's faithfulness to her husband. Sita is an emblem of wifely faithfulness. Cosmic order and righteous action, dharma, is, of course, very prominently a theme. Sometimes Rama is called Maryada Purushottama, the supreme person who observes Maryada or boundaries, dharma. And finally, the principle or the theme of faithful and empowered service, which is embodied and emblemized in the person of Hanuman. So it's this Hanuman who is the person of particular attention, divine person, we may want to say. I want to also point to professors who I have had the good fortune of studying under, two husband and wife couples, especially Professors Robert and Sally Goldman at the University of California in Berkeley. I was fortunate to have Sally Goldman as my professor of Sanskrit, in which we read the Valmiki Ramayana in the original Sanskrit with commentary, with Sanskrit commentary. And Professor John and Professor Mary Brockington, who are now retired and who live in Oxford and are fellows of the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. One could say so much more about them, but time is short. And then moving on to Journey to the West, and I won't pronounce this properly, Xi You Zhi would be my attempt, but I'm willing to be corrected. This again is a 16th century novel. It's attributed to a certain Wu Zheng-en, but the authorship is not certain. And basically it's a story of a Buddhist monk named Tang San Chang, who journeys from Xi'an, present-day Xi'an, to India. It's called Journey to the West because from Xi'an it's somewhat to the west to come to India. What is his purpose? His purpose is to acquire Buddhist scriptures. And this is echoing an historical narrative, an actual occurrence several centuries earlier, when Xuanzang journeyed to India and spent some 19 years in India collecting scriptures, bringing them back to China, and there having them translated. There's a quite significant number of scriptures, Buddhist and also Hindu scriptures, which have been preserved. They've been lost in India and preserved in China, in Chinese. Sun Wukong is one of the characters of this story, this drama. He's one of three traveling companions who bring lots of adventure into the story. And it is particularly these adventures which have made the story of the Journey to the West so popular in China. So, what happens when we, so to say, juxtapose Hanuman and Sun Wukong, who I would suggest we can call enduring other than human heroes, whether someone calls them monkey or vanara or whatever, they are other than human. Now, different ways, there are different sorts of similarity we can find. And I have to say that these are, there's a sense of extraction here from the Journey to the West. That is to say, we cannot exactly put the two texts next to each other like in parallel columns and see immediate similarities. However, we can see significant similarities which have a strong suggestion of influence, as I'll come eventually to say, from the Valmiki Ramayana. Both Hanuman and Sun Wukong are disturbing. They disturb both of them an exalted divinity. Hanuman, as you may know as a child, goes after the sun. Why? Because he thinks it's a big, fresh fruit. And so he decides to jump to the sun. On the way, he encounters, actually not on the way, it's on the way after he swallows the sun, isn't it? He encounters the storm god Indra, who strikes him down. That's another story we won't go into now. Sun Wukong has been positioned in heaven, but he's been positioned as the keeper of the horses. And he finds this rather insulting. And so he starts to make trouble in the celestial realm. At one point, upon realizing that he's at the top of the 33 layers of the heavenly palace, he steals and consumes Lao Tzu's pills of immortality and Xu Wangmu's peaches of immortality. Now this gets into another theme, which is a point of commonality, is the sense of immortality of both of them. But sort of backing up the origins of both of them, there is also a kind of parallel, and that is, we know that Hanuman is said to be conceived by the wind, by Vayu, and not exactly the same, but Sun Wukong, somehow he appears when wind crosses over a certain stone egg. By exposure to the wind, Sun Wukong appears. So we are told. Again, back to the point of immortality, there is this commonality that Hanuman, in a sense, gains immortality from the boons, from the blessings of both the divinity Brahma and from Indra. Sun Wukong's immortality is multiple. He studies under a Taoist priest who rewards him with not one or two, but I think what does it say, 72 different sorts of immortality and 9 layers. And he's, in other words, he's understood to be protected in all circumstances. This watch, oh, now it works, okay. If I lift it, but then it closes, okay. Oh, yeah. That's okay, I think I'll be all right.
2311.
2311, okay, sorry, thank you. Shape-shifting is there in both of them, and I am watching the time, so I'm going to jump beyond this. But you may recall, those of you familiar with the Ramayana, that when Hanuman first time he meets with Rama and Lakshman, he first comes in disguise. He comes as a sadhu, as an ascetic, as a mendicant, because he's not sure who they are, so he's cautious. Sun Wukong is trained apparently to also change shape for various purposes. But all of this, you could say, is, you could find similarities like this in so many stories. But here I think we come to the real point in the narrative, and it has to be said in the case of Sun Wukong, this is a small portion of the entire story. It involves only 4 of many more chapters. That's basically what I'm saying here. And I'm going to move faster to say that Sun Wukong is commissioned to recover a princess for a king whose consort has been stolen 3 years before. After entering the Scarlet Purple Kingdom, the pilgrims meet the deathly ill king. The king is deathly ill because he's feeling the absence of his wife. Sun Wukong determines his illness is that of paired birds separated from company. And Sun Wukong cures him with a decoction of his own making. And then the king explains that his consort was abducted 3 years prior. A similar idea is there in Valmiki Ramayana, in the lament, the heart sickness of Rama. And this is a quote from a translation from the Valmiki Ramayana, the unabridged edition. I am sick at heart and wretched at what has happened, Lakshman. My left eye is throbbing fitfully. Sita, no doubt, is gone. She has been carried off, or has set out on her own, or is dead. So this sense of lament and sickness is there in both. But then, in both the journey to the west, or first in the journey to the west, Sun Wukong, he rescues not 1, but 2 princesses. Both monkeys are given a token of recognition. Rama gives a ring engraved with his name, as you may know. The king gives Sun Wukong a pair of golden bracelets worn by the princess. The king could not bear the sight of those bracelets. Similarly, Rama says tears covered his face like mist covers the moon when he beholds Sita's ornaments left behind. So sort of touching moments are described. Similar descriptions of the palaces of the demons who have stolen the princesses, and the sightings of the princesses by Hanuman in the case of Sita and Sun Wukong in the case of the 2 princesses are quite similar, meeting them both in despondent moods. The chastity of both is also emphasized. Both women remain chaste during their captivity. And Sita says, again quoting the Valmiki Ramayana, I cherish my devotion to my husband above all else. Monkey, I would never willingly touch another's body even with my foot. And I believe she says this when Hanuman has offered to carry her back. She says, no way. I will not be touched. I will not touch in any way. So there's a similar idea in the journey to the west. In this case, the princess has some sort of divine robe which makes her protected from the demons so that he cannot touch her. Okay, and in both cases, after meeting with the princess, there's fire. In the case of Hanuman, he alights the entire Lanka and in the case of Sun Wukong, he also starts a fire in the demon's palace. Professor Victor Mayer, a scholar who does in particular comparative studies, has come to this conclusion, which I'll read in full. This entire lengthy episode in the Journey to the West resembles Hanuman's visit to Sita in Lanka so closely that the similarity cannot possibly be ascribed to chance, shared folkloric impulses, or any other explanation other than plain influence, whether direct or indirect. What we see here is nothing less than a whole series of intimately connected narrative details from the Ramayana that form the basis for 4 sequential chapters of the Journey to the West, specifically these chapters 68 through 71. So, yes, there are these similarities, but there are also differences. And I think it is only proper to acknowledge, to recognize the differences. Generally, I'm saying these are differences in mood. Hanuman readily subordinates himself to Rama and to Sita. In contrast, Sun Wukong is always a fighter. He's always a troublemaker, so much so that he needs to be controlled by a golden band which is put around his head, and which his master, he chants a mantra to tighten the band, which gives him such a headache that he has to stop whatever mischief he's making. Hanuman is, of course, devoted to Rama and Sita. He is, we can say, bound also, but he is bound by devotion, unlike Sun Wukong, who is bound by this band, and so on. And Hanuman acts as, we could say, a kind of a team member with all of his Vanara associates, the vast army. Sun Wukong, he gets, early in the story, he is imprisoned under a mountain, and as I said, he's bound with this golden band by Guan Yin. Ultimately, the grand reward, you can say, for Sun Wukong is that he becomes a kind of Buddha. In this understanding, he is a fighting Buddha. And some have suggested that the whole story as a whole is a kind of, could be seen as a critique of Daoism. To end, I'll just, I found this on the internet, but I think it's helpful to see how specifically the Ramayana has journeyed all over Asia, East Asia, of course, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and it doesn't show any marks to Japan, but actually it's also present in Japan. And it's come to the West. There is a sort of animation film that came out some couple of decades ago called Sita Sings the Blues. An interesting rendition, so to say, from Sita's perspective. You can find it on the internet. But I think it's clear that the direction of influence is very much from south to north to east and to far east, from especially the Valmiki Ramayana, but possibly other versions of the Ramayana. But it has to be also said that the book, Journey to the West, has other sorts of elements. It has, of course, Buddhist elements, Taoist elements, and so on. But it's a very interesting blending in which we find this personality, Sun Wukong, as we might want to say the Chinese Hanuman. So I will end there, and I guess we could see if anyone has question or comment. Do we have time? Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Such an insightful, like, very, very interesting. I just want to understand more.
Should we move the microphones so that? Oh, you have it. Good.
Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. It's very exciting to know how deeply they are connected. Just want to know about when you mentioned Sun Wukong as a critique of Daoism. What exactly you mean by that? I really want to know more of that.
What sort of critique is being made against Daoism? That's an interesting question, which I would need to ask experts on, only to say that the sort of conclusion of the entire story, there is a strong emphasis on Buddhism, since the whole aim is to come to India to acquire Buddhist scriptures. And there is a lot of, in the beginning, in the early chapters of the Journey to the West, there is this interaction with a Buddhist master, but that's in the beginning. And it seems as if it's saying, well, yes, there is this Taoist presence, and there's something more. And for whoever the author may have been, Wu Chang'an of the Journey to the West, he seems to want to highlight Buddhism. How he wants to specifically criticize Taoism, that I'm sorry I can't say. Yes.
According to our religion, we believe that Hanumanji is the only God still alive, and he roams around to protect the followers. And what about the Chinese monkey god?
Whether he's still alive and moving around?
Yeah, we believe in that.
Yes.
That he is only in Kali Yuga.
Right.
He is the only God to protect the followers.
Right.
And
I understand.
what about the Chinese monkey god?
As far as my understanding goes, again, I have to qualify that generally he's not taken to be an actual divinity living as you may understand Hanuman to be. Rather, he's a fictional character in a fictional story, which is rendered as a kind of historical fiction, a historical novel. The history, as I mentioned in the beginning, is that in the 7th or 8th century, this one Buddhist monk did go from China to India, but in that history there's no mention of a Sun Wukong and all such adventures. He comes in the story which comes later, and I suppose you'd have to interview people in Chinese villages to see, do they take him to be a real personality existing today? I don't know.
He's very much alive in Chinese video games.
He's very much alive in the Chinese video game, in that sense, yes. Yes.
So my question is, as Hanumanji is worshipped as a god in India, the same way he is worshipped in China?
Well, the same, similar question. I don't think so. I don't think he's worshipped as we would see. Hanuman, as most of you know, there are shrines to Hanuman everywhere around India. And I'll never forget observing one humble gentleman. This was in Puri, in Odisha, several years ago. It was a shrine on the street of Hanuman, And I couldn't help but just stop and watch this man. He was sitting next to Hanuman, and he had flowers, and he was talking to Hanuman. And now and then he would offer a flower. And then he was gesturing, he was having a real conversation with Hanuman. And it went on for half an hour. And he had something he had to discuss with Hanuman, and now and then he would offer him a flower. And that always struck me that, yes, that's worship. That's none of this just formal, going through the motions. He was from his heart, he was speaking.
Thanks for the information. It was very insightful. Most Hindu deities have a physical aspect, but also a symbolic aspect. There's a lot of symbolism associated.
Mm-hmm.
With Hanuman as well, there is the whole physical aspect of him being very strong, being able to fly,
Yes.
try to eat the sun and all of that.
An expert Sanskritist.
Absolutely. But there is also, there are a number of studies, I think, which is to explore the symbolism of Hanuman. Which is to say he was, and in the South Indian Dvaita Vedanta, right, he's actually explored most as Pranadevu, which means the prana that we all have, the life breath. So he's a representation of that, it's considered. So that's, I think, the symbolism of Hanuman. Any thoughts on that, or did you come across that in your studies?
In the Chinese tradition?
Yeah, maybe in the Chinese tradition.
You're asking good questions, all of you, and you're just exposing my ignorance. Next life, maybe I will learn Putonghua, and then I can really study this properly. But symbolism, we'd have to ask an expert again. As I said, this is a work in progress for me, and I've just been kind of scratching the surface. But of course, it's not that Chinese philosophy and religious traditions are not very deep in their development of different sorts of symbolic representation and so on. Whether they apply any of that specifically to Sun Wukong, I wouldn't be able to say. No, I don't want to guess. Anyone else? Anything else? So now, I hope this is an inspiration, if for nothing else, that we go back to the Ramayana. I find most people of India familiar with the story of Rama. They tend to be familiar, if they're northern Indians, their familiarity is with Ramcharitmanas. And if they're South Indians, they're most likely familiar with Kamban Ramayana. But the Valmiki Ramayana is, you can generally say it's the original. And it's been translated now. The two scholars I showed on the left, Robert and Sally Goldman, have been involved in a translation project translating the entire, what is called critical edition of the Valmiki Ramayana. So they translated one, possibly two, of the kandas, of the 7 kandas. But you may find it interesting to actually go back to the, we can say, original Ramayana and study that. And then compare that with other Ramayanas, such as Tulsidasa's Ramcharitmanas and so on. It can be very interesting. So again, I want to thank all of you for this opportunity to share these ideas. And again, I want to thank the Indian Consulate and the Consulate General, Mr. Nair. So thank you all very much.
Valpey for such an enlightening and insightful presentation. I think we all are coming with some more knowledge after the end of the presentation. I would now like to invite the Honorable Consul General on stage to kindly present a token of appreciation to Dr. Valpey. Dr. Valpey, please join us on the stage.
Oh, okay.
This stone is from Jammu and Kashmir.
Oh,
The arrow from that went to China from India.
yes.
actually.
Thank you.
This is the book, one of those 300 Ramayanas.
Oh,
Sri Ramayana Darshanam by Kuvempu, one of the very well-known writer in Kannada literature.
oh, Kannada. Oh, yes.
Yes, he won Jnanapith Award for this work. Actually.
Wow.
This is the English translation of
Oh,
it.
that's great. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. It's a very thoughtful gift.
On behalf of the Consulate General of India, Hong Kong and Macau SARs, I extend my sincere gratitude to ISKCON Hong Kong, Dr. Valpey, and to all our wonderful audience for joining us today for this session. I would now request everyone to kindly join us for interaction over some refreshments. Thank you and Jai Hind.
So, it started when I was a child and my parents took me to an Indian dance performance at the University of Illinois. I was maybe 10 or 12 years old, and I remember seeing this dance. I guess it was Bharatanatyam, but what I still remember from it, how the performer was spending most of the time focusing on facial gestures. It wasn't so much moving around the stage, but it was very subtle facial gestures, and it was some kind of Indian festival, I guess. And something about that stuck with me, and I guess I felt like I need to find out more about this culture. Yeah. When I was at University of California in Berkeley, I saw the Krishna devotees on the street. They were singing, and something intrigued me. What are they all about? And then I was exposed to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and then Bhagavad Gita, and then it was just a few steps from there. We're being filmed. When I signed up for Sanskrit and Hindi both, my Hindi teacher said, "Oh, no, you can't do both. You will become confused." And I said, "No, let me try." And I got good marks in both. So